People who never even met Charlie Kirk are still up all night trying to uncover the truth behind his shocking end. Meanwhile, the one person who should be shattered, broken, unable to sleep for even a moment, his own widow, Erika, seems to be resting just fine. And now people think they finally know why. Because allegedly, just days before Charlie's sudden and tragic passing, he had already filed for divorce from her. And that's not even the wildest part. What nobody expected was for leaked pages, yes, actual pages from what is said to be Charlie's private journal to appear online out of nowhere. And the contents? Completely jaw-dropping. It sounds like Charlie had uncovered something deeply unsettling about his wife's past, something that shook him to his core. As soon as those alleged journal pages hit social media, everything exploded. People were calling this leak a total game changer. Now, you've probably heard the theories about Charlie and Erika's marriage for years. Whispers that she was placed in his life by high-powered donors connected to Turning Point USA, speculation that she had ties to elite circles that didn't want Charlie digging too deep into the confidential information he was demanding to expose. But these new so-called receipts flip everything upside down. They could even explain why Erika seemed to move on so quickly, almost unnervingly quickly, after everything happened, and why she's already publicly said she forgives the alleged shooter. Fans can't wrap their heads around that. When someone loses their husband in a traumatic way, forgiveness isn't the first word on their mind. But somehow for Erika, it was. Now let's talk about the claim that really set the internet on fire, the divorce rumors. A viral TikTok video made the rounds saying Candace Owens supposedly dropped hard proof that Erika had actually filed for divorce just days before Charlie's death. The account even claimed Candace shared text messages and legal documents showing Charlie had asked to dissolve the marriage. Thousands shared that clip within hours. Suddenly, everyone was asking the same question. Why would Charlie want a divorce right before everything went down? And if he was planning to separate from Erika, what exactly did he discover? But that's not even half of it, because recently, another detail surfaced. Charlie and Erika had quietly sold their Arizona home earlier this year. And get this, they were allegedly already living apart before his death. That single detail opened a floodgate of suspicion. If they weren't even living together, what did the public image of a picture-perfect marriage really mean? People close to Charlie have started stepping forward, saying what many suspected. The marriage the world saw was just a glossy facade. Behind the scenes, things were chaotic, messy, and filled with tension. Insiders describe constant arguments, icy silences, and public moments where Erika would talk over Charlie at Turning Point events. Almost as if she was already practicing being in charge. It didn't stop there. Apparently, in the months leading up to Charlie's death, Erika had already started taking control at Turning Point USA, holding meetings, giving directives, and acting like she was the one running the show. People noticed it, but nobody dared to say anything back then. Not when Charlie was still alive. Not when the organization was still pretending everything was fine. Then came that uncomfortable clip everyone has seen by now. Charlie casually asks Erika what their wedding date was, and she freezes, like she didn't know it, like she forgot the date of her own wedding. She nervously laughed it off and said there were too many anniversaries to remember. But the internet saw right through it. Some viewers swear that clip was more than awkward, almost like Charlie was testing her. Maybe because he'd already sensed something wasn't right. Maybe because he had already started piecing together parts of a puzzle the rest of us still haven't fully seen, because by that time, Charlie was changing. People close to him said he was connecting dots, stepping back from certain influences, and rethinking the people he trusted. He was distancing himself from donors, questioning advice from people he once listened to, and quietly shifting his views. Something in him had clearly shifted. Others around him felt it too. And that's where the real question comes in. Did Charlie start questioning more than politics? Did he start doubting his own wife and everything she had ever told him about her past? And when you look deeper into Erika's background, It's not hard to see why those questions matter. Publicly, Erika has always seemed confident, polished, and media-trained to perfection. But when people dug back into her life before Charlie, the picture that emerged was, let's just say, very different from the one her team curated. Remember, Charlie wasn't exactly experienced in relationships when they met. He was young, idealistic, and new to the world of high-profile conservative circles. Meanwhile, Erika was 5 years older and had already lived what looked like 10 different lives. She'd been a Miss USA contestant, then a casting director, then a reality show personality. Then she appeared in music videos. Her story reads like a movie script to glamorous one, full of twists, secrets, and unanswered questions. But then things get even more interesting, because Erika comes from a very well-connected family with deep ties to business, politics, and even defense circles. She once publicly mentioned her family received a plaque in Jerusalem for helping restore a historic gate, a sign that her background was far more elite than people realized. So, when the theory circulated online that Turning Point USA may have played a role in setting up Erika and Charlie's first official date, people started questioning whether their meeting was really as random as she claims. And here's the strange part: Erika has never once publicly commented on the high-profile case files Charlie was demanding to be released before he died. Not once. For someone so outspoken, confident, media-savvy, and comfortable in the spotlight, her silence on the topic Charlie cared the most about is suspicious. It's almost like she wanted nothing to do with it. Like she wanted that chapter erased. But things only got darker because once people started connecting the dots between Charlie's suspicions and Erika's mysterious background, new whispers began spreading through Turning Point USA, whispers about what Charlie might have been planning to reveal before he died. Some insiders say he had stumbled upon information buried deep within the organization's own structure, something that made a few powerful people uncomfortable. And that's when the tension between him and Erika allegedly exploded. According to multiple sources close to the couple, Charlie had been acting distant months before his death. He stopped attending private gatherings, canceled donor meetings, and even cut ties with some longtime supporters without giving a reason. He didn't look like the confident, energetic leader people were used to. He looked exhausted, drained, and most chilling of all, paranoid. Like he didn't trust anyone, not even the people closest to him. One insider claimed Charlie had started keeping certain documents locked away. He wouldn't let anyone near his laptop. He treated his private notes like classified files. Rumors started spreading that Charlie was keeping a digital journal logging conversations, names, and sensitive details, and only a handful of people even knew it existed. For someone leading a massive political organization, that level of secrecy wasn't normal. Unless he felt threatened, every time Erika showed up at a Turning Point event, something strange happened. Staff members were suddenly reassigned. Some were quietly removed from projects. New people and known names with no prior involvement were brought in and given high-level access. It was as if Erika was restructuring the organization under everyone's noses. Before Charlie was even gone, then came Erika's reaction after Charlie died, and that's when everything truly spiraled, because instead of quietly grieving, staying home, or stepping away from the public eye, Erika jumped straight into interviews, photo shoots, and polished social media posts within days. Her statements seemed rehearsed. Her tone felt cold. Her photos were perfectly lit. The internet called it a PR campaign disguised as mourning. And honestly, it looked exactly like that. Fans and critics alike noticed she cried without tears. Her expressions seemed forced. Her captions were carefully worded, almost like they were written by a team, not a widow grieving her husband. And the moment she started reshaping Turning Point USA's leadership, removing Charlie's closest allies and replacing them with new people loyal only to her, the conversation shifted from suspicious to downright alarming. Even people inside Turning Point USA couldn't stay quiet. They started posting cryptic messages online hinting that something wasn't right, that decisions were being made behind closed doors, that Charlie's movement was being rewritten in real time. And that's where Candace Owens stepped back into the picture. At first, she was quiet. Then she began noticing inconsistencies, things that didn't make sense, timelines that didn't match, reactions that felt unnatural. She posted a video online saying, "Something's off here, and if you can't see it, you're not paying attention." That one sentence shook everything. It reignited every conspiracy, every theory, every piece of doubt the public had. Suddenly, thousands of people began digging through old videos, photos, interviews, anything that could provide clues. One resurfaced podcast clip hit differently this time. Charlie talked about betrayal. He didn't name anyone, but he said, "The worst pain doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people who swear they'll never hurt you." Hearing that again after everything that happened gave people chills, because now the question hanging in the air wasn't just, what happened to Charlie Kirk? It was, who did he stop trusting? Because now the question hanging in the air wasn't just what happened to Charlie Kirk. It was, who did he stop trusting? And when that question started spreading, everything inside Turning Point USA began to unravel slowly, piece by piece, like a sweater someone kept tugging on. People who had been silent for months suddenly started whispering. Staffers who used to praise Erika's presence were now quietly distancing themselves. And even people who had once defended the marriage began admitting that something never felt right between Charlie and Erika, something they couldn't put their finger on before, but something they couldn't unsee now. One former staff member claimed Charlie had confided in him weeks before his death, saying he felt watched, not in a paranoid, fictional way, but in a very real, calculated sense. He allegedly said he felt like someone was tracking his movements, reading his emails, maybe even monitoring his calls. At the time, the staffer thought Charlie was just stressed. But now, looking back, he believes Charlie had discovered something massive, something that threatened the wrong people. And then there's the alleged digital journal now famous online for its haunting entries. According to leaks, Charlie wrote about suddenly noticing patterns, inconsistencies, and certain individuals showing up at events they had no reason to attend. He wrote about a private argument with Erika where he accused her of choosing them over him, though who them refers to is up for interpretation. Some people say it means donors. Others believe it points to elite networks Erika's family had been tied to for decades. But the part that really shook people was one chilling line he supposedly wrote just for days before everything he did. "I finally see it now. I married the wrong person." That one sentence has been dissected by social media detectives thousands of times. But what makes it even more disturbing is the next line. The one people believe was written about Turning Point USA leadership. They're not who they say they are. Now, add to that the fact that Charlie had reportedly canceled several donor meetings without explanation. He had stopped attending high-profile private gatherings, ones he never missed before. He cut off a few longtime supporters suddenly and refused to tell his inner circle why. That behavior was out of character for Charlie. Completely out of character. Meanwhile, during this shift in behavior, Erika was doing the opposite. She was appearing everywhere, speaking at events, taking photos with political elites, hosting charity galas, and acting like a rising star. The timing felt strange. Why was she stepping forward while Charlie was stepping back? Why was she gaining influence while he was growing distant, paranoid, and silent? And then there were the changes she made inside the organization. People who had been in Charlie's inner circle, staffers who had traveled with him, worked with him for years, some even considered like family, were suddenly being removed. New faces came in. People nobody had heard of before. People with vague backgrounds and unclear roles. These individuals began appearing at meetings, monitoring conversations, sitting in on calls, and making decisions nobody had authorized them to make, according to an insider who later spoke anonymously. Every time Erika showed up, someone lost their job. Someone was replaced. Someone was suddenly not allowed in the room anymore. But the strangest part wasn't even the staff changes. It was how quickly Erika pivoted after Charlie's death. Most widows retreat. They avoid cameras. They stay home. But Erika? She walked into the spotlight with more confidence than ever. She appeared on stage glowing, smiling, delivering speeches without the slightest tremble. She looked prepared. And for people who loved Charlie, that was unsettling, especially after the Charlie Kirk Legacy Award moment. The internet hasn't forgotten that. People zoomed in on her expressions, slowed down the video frame by frame, studied her body language, and the consensus online was nearly unanimous. She looks like she's acting. Then the whispers about the secret separation agreement hit the internet. According to alleged leaks, Charlie and Erika had been negotiating a separation that would give Erika partial control of his companies even before a divorce was finalized. That detail sent shockwaves everywhere. It made people wonder if some kind of transition plan had been happening behind the scenes long before Charlie died. If that's true, then nothing about this situation is normal, but the story gets even more twisted. Because as Erika stepped into Charlie's role, she began rewriting the organization he built from scratch. She talked about unity, about healing, about moving forward. Yet never once did she mention the one issue Charlie was passionately fighting for before he died: the truth behind massive financial misconduct and overseas connections he believed were being hidden from the public. The files he demanded transparency on. The records he risked upsetting powerful people over. Why would a widow claiming to continue her husband's mission conveniently avoid his most important cause? Even Candace Owens asked that exact question. Candace wasn't just a colleague. She was one of Charlie's closest friends. And when she saw the leadership shift, the silence, the sudden PR-driven messaging, she felt something was very wrong. She posted videos questioning the inconsistencies, pointing out suspicious reactions, and calling out the lack of transparency. In one video, she said if Charlie was questioning people around him before he died, those same people should not be in charge of his legacy now. That video alone sent Turning Point USA into chaos. Suddenly, journalists were digging. Social media channels exploded. Former staffers who loved Charlie began sharing encrypted messages, old screenshots, emails, and private conversations. Some were heartbreaking. Some were confusing. Some hinted that Charlie had been planning a massive internal audit one that might have exposed corruption within the organization he founded. Then the leaks about the Florida chapters came out. Dozens of members were banned from group chats for hate speech. But when screenshots surfaced, those messages weren't hateful. They were simply questioning government spending overseas, supporting Tucker Carlson, and demanding clarity about the missing funds Charlie had been concerned about. If that's considered hate speech, then something is very, very off inside the organization. And now that Erika is officially CEO, that silence feels louder than ever. Her leadership style? Very different from Charlie's, where he was fiery and unapologetically outspoken. She's polished and selective, speaking only to certain outlets, avoiding tough questions, and controlling the narrative tightly. But here's where things get even darker. Multiple sources say that after Charlie's death, there were several emergency meetings inside Turning Point USA. These meetings weren't about honoring Charlie, grieving, or discussing plans for a memorial. They were about managing the narrative. Staffers were reportedly told to avoid certain topics, delete older posts referencing key phrases Charlie had been using, and redirect conversations to safer, donor-friendly messaging. That doesn't happen in a grieving organization. That happens in an organization trying to protect itself. One of the most disturbing details came from a former security contractor who claimed that Charlie's concerns about being watched weren't bossel. According to him, there were unusual logins on internal servers the month before Charlie died. Files were accessed by accounts linked to people outside the organization. Data was copied. And yet, when these anomalies were reported to leadership, the warnings were ignored. But still, Erika didn't say a single word about any of this. She didn't question the missing files. She didn't demand transparency. Instead, she kept moving forward, launching new initiatives, rebranding, deleting older references to Charlie's investigations, and surrounding herself with a new inner circle. Then something even stranger happened. Erika launched her own initiative supposedly to expand Charlie's mission, but when people went to the website, they noticed something shocking. Charlie's name wasn't there. Not once, not in the mission statement, not in the history, not even in the inspiration section. It was as if the initiative had nothing to do with Charlie at all. It felt like a complete rebranding designed to replace him quietly. Fans immediately started posting comparisons between Charlie's old speeches and Erika's new talking points. And the difference was night and day. Charlie spoke with fire, passion, urgency. Erika spoke like a spokesperson hired to sell a carefully manufactured image. Then, as if things couldn't get more suspicious, leaked emails surfaced hinting that long before Charlie died, there were discussions about transitioning leadership. Some emails mentioned a new direction, a softer image, and a more strategic face of the movement. And in those threads, Erika's name appeared repeatedly. That's when everything clicked for people. Was this transition always part of a bigger plan? Was Charlie being pushed out quietly? Was his death part of a larger pattern of control and influence? People who once trusted Turning Point USA blindfolded are now demanding receipts. They want Charlie's files. They want his notes. They want his emails. They want to know why the organization that preached transparency is now radiating secrecy. They want to know why Erika seems so comfortable standing beside the very people Charlie grew distant from. But perhaps the most haunting line came from a former colleague of Charlie's who said, "He knew too much too fast, and he trusted the wrong person." Now, with all of this swirling, the question isn't just what happened to Charlie. It's who benefited the most from the moment he was gone. But perhaps the most haunting line came from a former colleague of Charlie's who said, "He knew too much too fast, and he trusted the wrong person." Now, with all of this swirling, the question isn't just what happened to Charlie. It's who benefited the most from the moment he was gone. And the deeper people dig, the more they realize something doesn't sit right, not with the timing, not with the reactions, and definitely not with the silence. Because when someone dies under mysterious circumstances, the people closest to them typically push for answers, transparency, and accountability. Erika, however, did the opposite. She asked for healing, unity, and moving forward. As if the conversation about Charlie's death was an inconvenience she needed the public to stop focusing on. But the public didn't stop. Not even close. In fact, the more Erika tried to control the narrative, the more suspicious everything began to look. People started comparing interviews, analyzing her tone, her body language, even the way she phrased sentences. Every clip went under a microscope, and the internet noticed something chilling. Her behavior didn't match the behavior of a grieving widow. She smiled too easily, spoke too confidently, and refused to acknowledge the very topics Charlie was passionately talking about before his death. And then, out of nowhere, another leak dropped, this time involving someone nobody expected, Ben Shapiro. Suddenly Ben was being accused of downplaying one of Charlie's biggest causes before his death. He said the issue ranked close to zero on America's priority list, even though this was the very cause Charlie had been pushing aggressively. This wasn't some minor policy disagreement. This was Charlie's life mission in his final months. The thing he refused to stay silent on. Why would Ben dismiss it so quickly? Why would he minimize something his friend cared so deeply about? People online began speculating that maybe Ben knew something. Maybe he wanted the discussion shut down. Maybe he wanted the public to stop asking questions. His comments didn't calm the situation, they amplified it. Because when someone close to the victim tells the crowd to stop caring, that always raises eyebrows. Meanwhile, Erika, now the official CEO of Turning Point USA, remains silent on that issue. She didn't defend Charlie's mission. She didn't stand with Candace. She didn't question the inconsistencies. She didn't challenge Ben. She didn't post even a single message supporting the cause Charlie died fighting for. That silence was louder than any statement she could have given. Then came the Florida chapter scandal. where Turning Point USA banned dozens of their own members from group chats for hate speech. But screenshots revealed the messages weren't hateful. They were simply students supporting Tucker Carlson and asking questions about missing funds and foreign aid spending. These were the exact concerns Charlie had before he died. Why would students be punished for asking the same questions their founder was asking unless there was something inside the organization that couldn't afford those questions being asked again? As the story continued unraveling, sources revealed that after Charlie's death, there was a massive internal cleanup. Old posts got quietly deleted. Sensitive terms Charlie had been repeating vanished from their official messaging. Videos related to his investigations were removed or unlisted. Staff were allegedly instructed not to engage in conversations regarding the missing funds topic. That's not grief. That's damage control. And that's when the internet realized something terrifying. It wasn't just Charlie's memory being neglected, his mission was being erased. Even Candace Owens said she felt a curtain drop over everything Charlie stood for. She pointed out how sudden the shift was, how choreographed everything looked, how leadership seemed more concerned with optics than truth. Her frustration only grew when she noticed that Turning Point USA's official public statements contained almost nothing about Charlie's investigations. Not one press release, not one speech, not one acknowledgement. It was like they wanted people to forget Charlie's final months ever happened. And while all this was happening, Erika kept gaining more visibility. She appeared at high-profile events. She stood beside major political figures. She smiled confidently for the cameras. Even though the comments under every post were filled with people demanding answers she refused to give, one of the most unsettling things people noticed was her demeanor every time she mentioned Charlie. There was no pain, no emotion, no tremble in her voice. It was almost like she was reading from a script. Even worse, during the Charlie Kirk Legacy Award ceremony, the moment that should have been the most emotional for her, she didn't shed a single real tear. People couldn't believe it. How could a widow stand on stage talking about her husband and not show genuine emotion? It didn't add up, but the more Erika tried to present herself as the new leader, the more cracks began to show. Old interviews resurfaced where her stories didn't match. Clips emerged where Charlie seemed distant or uncomfortable when she spoke. Photos reappeared where she stood too far from him or smiled too hard at events he looked miserable at. All those little inconsistencies added up. And suddenly, people started wondering if Charlie and Erika had been living two entirely different lives in the same marriage. Then came the revelation about Erika's new business ventures. Within weeks of Charlie's passing, she attended a luxury retreat, smiling with new partners and launching projects nobody had ever heard of before. How did she fund them so quickly? How did she secure partners so fast? Why was she moving as if nothing happened? Financial analysts were quick to point out something strange. The money trail didn't make sense if Erika was so devastated. How did she have the energy and the resources to launch brand new ventures almost instantly? How did she gain access to new connections so rapidly? And why did those connections align perfectly with the elite circles Charlie reportedly distrusted in his final months? No matter where people looked, something felt off, and then just when things couldn't get more bizarre, Candace Owens dropped something that shook the internet again. She shared snippets of her last messages with Charlie. Nothing too personal, but enough to reveal one disturbing detail. Charlie believed he was being silenced. He told Candace he felt watched. He believed people close to him were not who they claimed to be. He suspected information was being withheld. He feared that certain individuals were trying to shut him down. This wasn't paranoia. These were his final fears. When those messages went public, everything changed. Suddenly, thousands of people who had never questioned the official story began connecting the dots. And more insiders started whispering that Charlie was planning to reveal something massive, something involving donor influence, overseas ties, and internal corruption. One former associate described Erika as ambitious, charming, and calculated. She said Erika knew exactly what circles she needed to enter, exactly which events to attend, and exactly how to position herself. She said Erika had been networking in political spaces long before she even met Charlie. If that's true, then the question becomes, did Erika fall in love with Charlie? Or did she select him? Because the way everything unfolded suggests someone benefited tremendously from his absence. And now, let's talk about the detail the internet refuses to ignore. Erika never talks about the topic Charlie cared about the most, the one he demanded answers for. The one he was willing to risk relationships, partnerships, and his own safety for. Why would she avoid it if she wants to carry on his mission? Why hasn't she pushed to release the files Charlie begged to make public? Why hasn't she addressed the inconsistencies surrounding October 10th? Why has she never once spoken about the suspicious assassination plot discussion that blew up right after his death? Instead, she pushes unity, healing a new direction. But whose direction? Certainly not Charlie's. Even neutral commentators now admit something feels orchestrated. Too many convenient decisions, too many polished responses, too many people benefiting from the reshaped narrative. And with every new leak, the picture grows clearer. Charlie's legacy isn't just being forgotten, it's being rewritten in real time. People inside the organization feel it. The culture shifted overnight. Staff are scared to speak. Questions get shut down. And Erika stands at the center of it all, smiling for cameras while staying silent on anything that actually matters. So, what does all of this really say about Charlie and Erika's marriage? Maybe Charlie believed he was marrying for love, but to many observers now, it looks like Erika was strategically placed in his orbit, perfect on paper. Perfect for public image, perfect for influence, perfect for control. And when Charlie began drifting away from the script, questioning donors, cutting ties, and asking the wrong questions, that's when the story started falling apart. So, was Charlie Kirk just another pawn in a much bigger game? Did he stumble on something he wasn't supposed to know? Did he trust the one person he shouldn't have? And did he pay the ultimate price for discovering the truth? One thing is certain, too many questions are still hanging in the air. And the people watching refuse to stop digging, because if this story has proven anything, it's that truth never stays buried forever. It always finds a way out. And when it does, the world won't be ready for what comes next. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Because this story is far from over.